here we are inside the Meraki dashboard here. When you first log in, you will see your appliance here. Don't pay any attention to the location because that is not where this is. This is just a test lab that I set up for you guys. I went ahead and covered the IP, dynamic host name here. I'm going to cover the first part of it, but basically you can have a dynamic DNS entry with Meraki without the need for setting up any other type of service. Gonna blank out the serial number here. You can see what ports here are connected, any clients that are currently connected. One thing that I forgot to mention on the Z1 and the Z3 is they do actually have wireless built into them as well, since they are meant for to be a teleworker gateway. It's basically for your workers to bring it home and use it as a router in their home office. Some of the things that we can look at here, and I'm going to go ahead and blank out these addresses as well, so you animals can't do anything on that. But you can see live uplink traffic that's going over your internet port. And then you can also see live latency down here. So what you do is you can set this up, and you can actually set up to be multiple, but I only have it set up to ping to 8.8.8.8 right now. So this kind of shows you your average millisecond time and any loss that you may have incurred. So let's see if we can find any that we actually had any bad connections come through. There we go. We got a little bit of loss right here, but just a little bit, and usually that's just a blip. Then over here you can see Dhcp Scopes, any Dhcp that have been handed out. So you can see that we have one test PC on the LAN right now. Location, that was fun. And then over here on the tools page, you're able to ping different IPs. So if we wanted to ping the appliance, we could do that. Right now I actually have ICMP turned off on firewalls, and we'll get to that when we get over to the configuration page for the firewall. You can reboot the appliance here, blink the LEDs. One thing that's nice about the Meraki is it has an RGB LED that's built into it, so that's kind of cool. I know you guys will like that. Dashboard throughput, you can run and actually do a test between the dashboard and the device itself. It doesn't always show the best results there. Trace route, you can do some trace routes if you need to. You can do other pings out to different ICMP caches and stuff like that. DNS Lookup, you can do DNS runs and which DNS server you want to use. So if we were to run this right here, you can kind of see that, oh hey, this was our authoritative server, which was the Google DNS, and this is what it has for all that. And we can do the same thing for up here too. We can show you what this looks like. And you can see here, whenever you have IPs that are missing, that's because that was behind a firewall of some sort. All right. So what you have all been waiting for is over here you have all these different things. So here, let me show you this while we're going an overview real quick. So this is your clients page, and you can actually click down on the client, and you can actually get some pretty interesting information on what they have been going out to and where they have been going. So that's always kind of creepy. But for office environments, and also if you're monitoring your rigs, you can check to see if they have been doing anything nefarious and going out and contacting somebody possibly maybe that they shouldn't be contacting. So that's one of the good things about being able to dig in And another thing that you can do is you can actually do a packet capture on the client itself. So if we were to do a packet capture, it will fill in all this information. We're going to download the PCAP. It's doing a capture right now for that device, and then when it's done doing that capture, we will see the results of the packet capture. One of the things to notice here too is that I put in 60 seconds, but really we're just going to stop that now. And then it downloads a PCAP, and then you can open up the PCAP. One of the things, all right, moving on. Addressing in VLANs, the reason why you are all here. What you have is different deployment settings here. Really just leaving these on the default of a routed and MAC addresses default is fine. If you were to ever start to use Active Directory servers or anything like that, that's when you would change to an IP address, just so you'd be able to route different devices through to the Active Directory server. But for most normal cases, you're going to keep it on MAC address, and that's the best way to keep it. You can see here that you have a default VLAN right now, and then each one of these ports is set to that default VLAN. Now, right now, the default VLAN's name is default, but you could literally change that to be anything. So to continue with our example, we're going to say Yankee. We're not going to change the subnet or anything on this example, just so I don't kick my clients offline and I don't want the whole device to go over and do itself again. And then right up here, you can actually click Add VLAN. And look, it gives you nice examples of exactly what you need to put in there. How about that? Gotta love Meraki. So let's say this is going to be Red Panda. And in our example, we gave them VLAN 2. We won't give them any group policies. That's once you get the Meraki and you start digging in, you're going to find all these. All I'm doing is kind of showing the basics on, so that way you can grasp the concept of how the VLAN is handled. So right here, this is one of the things that I was talking about, where we can go ahead and define what we want our firewall to be. So basically, this will be the default gateway for this network right here. So right here, what we can do, and it wants it like this right here. So this is that /24, so that's that 255.255.255.0 subnet. And then we create. And then we can save our changes down here. It'll reload the page. And now you can see we have another VLAN configured. And now I'm going to show you how you can assign the VLAN to different ports. One of the things to notice here is you can notice on these default ports, the native VLAN is still VLAN 1, but then allowed VLANs is everything. So if we wanted to make it so this was just the VLAN 1, we would not allow all the other ones. And now you can see here, only VLAN that would come off of port 2 right here would be VLAN 1. But then if I were to plug into VLAN 3, 4, or excuse me, port 3, 4, or 5, I could still access the Red Panda network, or the VLAN 2, if I tagged my traffic as VLAN 2. So then let's go ahead and click here. And now we are going to, here is that trunk and access. Okay, so that's another good thing too. So one of the things that we can do here as well is make this as an access. And then you can see here, it just says, so I don't want to get into because there's tons of stuff that you can start doing with Meraki that is pretty amazing. And I think once you guys kind of dig in and get into this, yeah, you're gonna see that there's a lot that you can do. But for default, we're gonna leave it as open, and it's just an access port. So now, instead of being a trunk port and just not allowing any VLANs on there, we're gonna say, nah, this is just an access port. So now we could do the same thing with this port down here if we wanted to. We could say the port's enabled, it's an access port, and only Red Panda can get onto this port. So now, let's save our configuration here. What we would be able to do now is plug into port 3 and end up on Red Panda's network. One of the things too on here is we're going to make sure that the DHCP server is set up. I'm pretty sure by default, yes. So when you set up a new VLAN and a new network on the Meraki, it automatically sets up your DHCP server. Lease time and all that is pretty much just standard 1 day. But if you ever need to change anything or put any DHCP options, so this is another thing, any reserved ranges, any fixed IPs, anything like that, you would put it here in the DHCP. So now that we have the ports set up and the VLAN set up, our DHCP is set up, all we have left is to make it so now he cannot talk to us. Our Red Panda is unable to. So right here, okay, let me try to explain this here. So your default rule is, hey, anything goes. You can contact this network, you can contact this network, you can contact this network. I will route your traffic to that VLAN. So if I was on VLAN 2 on a couple of switches down, I could still go in, type in an IP that's on another VLAN, and the router would route me over to that. And that's what your Meraki is acting as. So what you would do here is put in your source of 192, 168, 128, and we're going to say the network. So we're going to put it in this range again. And I'm going to go ahead and add 2 rules because I know you only need 1, but I like to do 2 rules, so that way it has just because that's just the way I like to do it. And protocol is going to be any. We are going to say deny, and we are going to go right here. I'm just pasting right now to save time. Save that to 2. Save that to 2. So this comment right here will be no Yankee to RPM, Red Panda Mining. And then this is no RPM to Yankee. So what this is going to do is it's saying anything from this network here, which is our default VLAN 1, cannot talk to Red Panda's network over here, VLAN 2, which is this network here. And then here we are going to say now vice versa, Red Panda cannot talk to me. It's a deny. And the way that these rules go, just like any firewall rules, any programming, anything like that, math, order of operations. It's going to start from the top and work its way down until it gets to that rule that says, okay, if it's not in this set of rules, I'm going to allow it. Another thing to notice down here is you can see here in the services, ICMP ping, none. You can allow maybe your home public IP to ping to your firewall if you wanted to do some latency checks, but I do not recommend allowing pings, and I do not allow local status and configuration. So that basically says if you're trying to get into this firewall from anywhere other than this dashboard, you can piss off. So that's what that's saying. But yeah, that is basically it in a nutshell. Some of the things, some extra features that I could show on here as well. You can do traffic shaping things as well as the site-to-site VPN, access control. So that is telling people that if they connect to the Wi-Fi, I want them, and you set it to which network you would want this to go through, so they would have a click through. So I will show you what that kind of looks like. So when you go to a hotel or something like that and you see these click-throughs, hey, welcome to Hilton.com or Hilton hotels, check in with your room number and all that kind of stuff. That's what these are used for. Trying to think. There's lots that we could go over here, but I'm trying to keep it short, sweet, and to the point with the VLANs and how that's set up and everything like that. So, yeah. All right, now we will move on to the Unifi. All right, this is the Unifi dashboard here. This is what you'll see when you first log in. I wish I had a dashboard that had some live devices on there, but I do not, so I apologize about that. But I do have some devices that are assigned to this dashboard. I just don't have any dashboards that are live that I could show you. There would be lots of information that I would have to blank out, and I don't want to have to do that. So since this is just a theory overlook, we will kind of go through the same overlook of the dashboard here real quick, and then also we will go through and set up a VLAN for Red Panda on this one as well. If we were to have the gateway, we would have our latency and everything like that up here, same as we do on the Meraki. We would have our different devices that would be online up here, access point ratios as far as utilization, retry rates, all that kind of good stuff, how many clients. Over here you would see the different type of association failures with access points. So this is Unifi is really well known for their their Wi-Fi. So they have a lot of great Wi-Fi products. You could come over to here on the devices, and obviously we can see that they're down, but we do have an offline firewall on this site, so that will make it so we can go into our settings over here. This is just your general settings. You can set up your wireless networks here. You can assign your wireless networks to different VLANs, and what that would do, boys and girls, is tag your traffic coming off of that AP. So if you were to have a trunk port going to an access point, you would be able to tag a VLAN on one of the SSIDs, and then that would make it so that SSID would only communicate on that guest network for you. And then through your firewall rules, you would make it so guest network can only get out to the internet, and maybe if you have some local services that you're running, you could set it up that way. And it's the same thing on the Meraki device as well. Here we have our different networks that are set up, and this is where you will create a new VLAN on a Unifi. One of the things about the Unifi structure is when you make a configuration change, it makes the changes to all the devices that are associated with this controller. And obviously, I'm not going to get into the steps of setting it up. There's tons of stuff out there about setting up a Unifi controller. This is, again, it's just kind of getting a better idea of how VLANs work and how you set them up on your devices. So we're going to say that LAN 1 It doesn't have a VLAN, but we know that the default VLAN is always 1, because you can see, no, this doesn't, because it is just the default VLAN. So now if we were to add a new network and we were to call this one Red Panda, and you can give it different types. So this is another one that so since we don't have a switch associated with this site, if we did have a switch, that's where that VLAN only comes over. So say you just needed to have, you know, 3 or 4 ports just be their own little thing, and you don't want them talking to anything else on that switch. You could assign those ports just to that VLAN and not have to create a network. But for this video's sake, we're going to create a network. So it's telling me what port this is going to be on, and with the USG, you only have 1 LAN port, so it's always going to be the same LAN port. And we are going to say VLAN 2, and this is when we give it our network information, .2.1/24. Now you can see here that once we filled this in, this is what our gateway is. So if we wanted to, we could say 100 here, and then all of a sudden it would change all of this for us. Though you can see that our network range doesn't change, because that has to do with subnetting. Not going to get into that, not trying to get too confusing on you, but just so you know. So right there, we'll leave it as .1. You can see that it has already filled all this stuff in for us. Anytime we change this, sometimes you want to click that, because down here now, it filled in our DHCP range for us. And you could change this to, best practice in my mind is I always go from 100 to 200, and then anything outside of that scope is usually going to be statically assigned. And then you could put whatever domain name you want. You could say this is RPM domain, so that way when they log in and you see on that Wi-Fi when it says, hey, this is network 1, network 3, and then all of a sudden you log into some networks and it actually has a domain name, well, this is where that comes from, is from your DNS. So down here we would save that there, and now just like that, they are good to go. And then the same thing over here is you would go over to your firewall and you create a rule, and you would say RPM, and you would only need 1 here, and you would want it to drop, and want to say all, and we want it to be network, and we want to say from LAN, no MAC addresses, to Red Panda, and it's on the, and if you want to, you can establish, you can turn on logging, but this is just how it goes. This is the action that it does. You can actually drop it, reject it, accept it. You can put it before the predefined rules. So there you go again, the order of operations. If this is in front of all the rest of the rules, it's going to do this one first, and then it'll go for all the rest. And what it's saying here is we don't want our LAN talking to Red Panda's network. And since we're doing this in here, it's the same thing. It's doing it in the firewall because that's where routing takes place. Most switches that you will deal with will not have any type of routing in them. There are switches out there that do, but you don't have to worry about that now. But yeah, from there you would save that firewall rule. And that would be, so that's actually on the WAN. What we would actually have to do is make those rules on the LAN side of things. I just kind of did that real quick, so I'll delete that out of there. And we could literally go into the LAN local here, create a new rule, RPM. We're going to reject it, all traffic. We're going to enable logging. And with the states, You can change those, but really it's just going to reject everything anyway. But you could turn those on to say where you would want to reject it. So if it came back with an invalid state, you would reject it then. From here, you would click the network that you want to use. So we want LAN, and then we come over here and we say Red Panda, and what it's doing up here, order of operations again. It is going to put this rule at the very top. And it's going to say, for my predefined rules, I want to reject everything, enable logging, don't match on IPsec rules. So you don't have to worry about IPsec yet. LAN to Red Panda, and you could save it. And then on here, what you could do if you wanted to, you could do the same thing where, let's say this is now Yankee, and we would do the same thing. Reject all, enable logging, network, select the network. Now we would say anything coming from Red Panda to the LAN, and you would save. And you could also do it so it's just specific IP addresses that wouldn't come over as well. So hopefully, again, this is not too confusing for people. I'm glad I won't have to blank out as much on this one. Again, this is not a tutorial on how to use the different dashboards per se, but it is kind of a crash course in VLANs and VLAN structures for both Unifi and the Cisco Meraki devices.